Welcome. Behind these walls, brilliant machines are working together. They're using software for good, software to serve humans. Strange, yet undeniably brilliant.
Welcome back to Harvard. Michelle Bachmann's departure leaves Republicans without their lightning rod, of course, but does it also leave Tea Partiers without an elected star-quality leader? She joins Sarah Palin, Jim DeMint, and Allen West as big-name Tea Partiers who actually peeled away. So does that diminish the power of the far right or just usher in a new era with young guns like the friendly Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Mike Lee of Utah? Dana Milbank's a smart guy with the Washington Post. He delights us all with his deep mind and frisky wit. And, of course, Liz Winstead is, of course, the brilliant co-creator of The Daily Show, which I think gets more brilliant every day. Let me ask you, thanks for joining us, Liz. What do you make of Michelle, the disappearing people? They go away, they take French leave, an old term. They just, governor of Alaska, it's not the biggest state in the union in terms of people, but you were elected, you did take an oath, and then you split. And with Bachmann, she's talking last week about running for re-election. She's doing ads. All of a sudden, she says, I'm up against an 8-year term limit, which I've just discovered. The DeMint goes from being a United States senator. He could be there for life from that state. I guess he's South Carolina. And you know what? He leaves and goes to the Heritage Foundation, which is not a bad place for the right wing, but it's not the United States Senate. Why are they running and hiding? Question mark. Or going to Fox.
Who is that to?
That's to you, Liz.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's nothing more brave and patriotic than looking at something and when it's really hard and quitting. Because that's what they all did. You know, we're in a really hard time. And I think that they look at their own, intellectual heft and realize they don't have the chops. And so they got to get out. You can't tell me that a Sarah Palin or a Michelle Bachmann or a Jim DeMint has the chops to look at the financial crisis we're in, jobs, what's going on in foreign policy, and that they're the ones that can fix it. They got elected on an emotional rage, and they have to back out, I think.
You mean they really are humble?
No, I think that they really
humble.
Humble. I think they realize that they absolutely don't have the skill set.
Dana, that's one motive I have. That's a motive. I know, but to recognize it yourself, a lot of people in Congress don't recognize it.
Yeah,
left and right.
The Humility Caucus has very few members these days up on the Hill.
But let me ask you about this. Let's talk about the transition we're looking at. I have grown up with the memory, so the historic memory. I wasn't aware at the time, although my mom, when I come home, was watching the McCarthy hearings. I think she was rooting for McCarthy, actually. But Joe McCarthy seems to have been reincarnated in Ted Cruz. They even look alike. I mean, that's not really fair to say that, but they do. They have a certain aspect, a certain mien, if you will, a certain nastiness, an edge. And I see Rand Paul's replacing his father on the hard right, and this Mike Lee further right than Bob Bennett in Utah, further right than Orrin Hatch.
Right.
It seems like almost like some sort of insect farm where the bigger, badder insects are replacing the little ones.
Well, there's a whole lot of turnover in a lot of places, and some of them are just as goofy characters as before. Like in the House, you have Louis Gohmert instead of Michelle Bachmann.
Birther.
He tells Attorney General Holder that he's casting aspersions on his asparagus. Okay, what do you do with that? So there is just an unending stream of goofiness, and that never has gone away, and please God, never will go away from the United States Congress.
For your good.
But for my benefit. But there is a darker strain here. Mike Lee, an amiable guy, Rand Paul, an intellectual. Ted Cruz is a very interesting case because he is making his name very much the way Joe McCarthy made his name, with outlandish, unprovable allegations, throwing them out there, getting attention. Well, he looks like it. It's superficial. He's the same age as McCarthy, but that's not why I call him Tail Gunner Ted, because he's using those same kind of tactics. People will see that works. You're going to get more outlandish allegations.
I think we're looking at. Go ahead, Liz. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, these people have never, when a fly swatter is fine, they always use an anvil. They never really look at a problem with any kind of nuance. Everything is horrible. Everyone's motivation is ugly and dark and ruthless. And you hear those words, infestation, the Muslim infestation, from these people constantly.
Well, the smirk is what gets to me. This attitude of I'm better than you, you're no good, you're maggots isn't a bad word, but the idea they're no good, and the idea that the right wing Republican Party. Now, my concern is the voter will go to the voting booth in 2016, not a million years from now, and really have no choice. They'll have to vote Democrat just because what will happen is the Republican Party will put a ticket together which will have at least one of these crazy people on the ticket. It's very possible that Ted Cruz will be on the ticket. It's very possible that Rand Paul will be on the ticket or one of these people. It's not at all possible. It seems to me that it's going to run a ticket of two moderates. Think about that chance. Zero. A Chris Christie with even a Rubio. That's a moderate ticket by today's standards. The Tea Party's pushing them so far over.
I think that's true, but I think the Republicans are beginning to hear that Bob Dole message of closing shop for repairs for now. And that's why there is some bit of good news for the Republicans in the Bachmann departure. She's not leaving just because she's tired of it. There's some eight-year term limit.
Today.
She was going to lose her election next year. She only won by 1.2 percentage points last time in a pretty good Republican district. Now the FBI, the FEC, Ethics Commission, all looking at her presidential campaign. She was going to lose that campaign, but I think
I'm still for innocent to prove
it suggests that
myself.
even in a Republican district, people will reach a point where they've had enough of this, and that's possibly good news for the Republican Party and everybody else.
You know, Liz, the face of the Democratic Party right now is probably a bit of a blur. It's probably a combination of the president and the Clintons, both of them. It's probably, you think who's Mr. or Mrs. Democrat or Miss Democrat, you'd say Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. They're the big faces. Who are the big faces on the right? And they're not the old moderate Republican Party. They don't have even a game. They're not even in this game. And the question is, if you have a party so far to the right, what's that do to democracy? What kind of choice do you have? You don't make a choice. You just vote common sense and vote against them.
Well, and they keep grasping. It's like, when you watched the primary on the Republican side, every one of those people was the front runner for like at least 2 days, And when you watch the rising stars of this party, that's the same way. It's these new guys that everybody loves for 5 minutes. And it's like, can we get to know these people, see how they legislate, see if they can actually bring people together? They never want to do that. They're just grasping at straws like insane people who are drowning.
I want to thank you both for coming. By the way, I was thinking about how brilliant Stewart is, your guy, Jon Stewart. And I thought this through a lot, why these guys are the best comedians in history. You take three of the greatest, and they all have sort of a point of view. Jack Benny, Johnny Carson, and this guy. And all three of them got their best laughs by deadpanning, because you know what they were thinking. They have taught you through their careers, brief careers in some cases, so you just laugh your butt off at them. And just when they just pause. That's the brilliance of just silence looking at the camera. Not a political thought, but I do think about these things, Liz, all the time. Thank you. And by the way, the public paper.
The confidence of knowing. Yep.
The confidence of knowing who they are. It works.
Yep.
They've taught us who they are. Thank you, Dana Milbank, and that's why I think that Jon Stewart is a brilliant political satirist. Liz Winstead. Winston tastes good. Liz Winstead, thank you. And, of course, Dana Milbank, who I read more often. Coming up, take a guess. Which political party plays fast and loose with the truth 3 times as often as the other? Well, maybe there is a difference. The results of a new study by PolitiFact next in the Sideshow. And this is Hardball, the place for politics.